Hi there, my name is Kaylee, and you might know me as Your Hopeful Romantic on Instagram and TikTok. I am Bailey Hannah's PA, but I'm also starting to work for more authors in this space. I love all things romance books and books that will make you feel something.
Welcome to Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. This is a soft space to explore romance and books, where no topic is too taboo. I'm your host, Casey, and this week I am sitting down with Kaylee, who you might know as Your Hopeful Romantic on Instagram and TikTok. We're covering so many things in this episode, from eldest daughter energy and imposter syndrome to the tug of war between being seen and staying small, and the art of safekeeping soft hearts inside of strong boundaries, both online and in real life. We're also talking about some of our favorite books and how they have helped heal some of the biggest life changes and transitions that we've experienced. And stick around to the end of the episode for Kaylee's beautiful love letter. It's part manifesto, part pep talk, and I know you're going to love it. So, Kaylee, welcome to the Love Letters and Books podcast. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
You know, we had one of those pre-production calls that I could have just hit start record and it would have been a whole episode on its own. We talked for about 45 minutes. We talked about everything from being eldest daughters to grief to at one point me giving you my own version of a psychic reading. So today should be really interesting if we pick up where we left off. I'm just really glad you're back. And I wanted to introduce you to the audience because I feel like I'm so naturally drawn to your content, your voice, your presence in this space. And you were just on my list of guests for 2026 that I couldn't wait to have on.
Well, thank you. I am truly honored and honestly had you in my mind for a goal for myself in 2026 of be on her podcast. So it's so crazy that it's coming to light in January already.
I love that. Maybe that's a really good sign of the year ahead. I feel like 2025 is a little rough. Not that lessons weren't learned, but it was a little rough for some of us, just me included. And so
Yes.
I'm looking forward to a nice entry into 2026. But
Me too.
Kaylee, can you tell us a little bit more about you and what you're doing in this book space?
Yes. So basically, I have been around on the old Bookstagram for quite a few years now. It started out during COVID days. I formed my own book club that was ran on Zoom with some mutual friends of mine from back home, but also friends of friends. And from there, it kind of blossomed. I changed jobs a few times over the span of 5 years. And then Bailey Hannah came into my life. And we hit it off right away. I was there for her first ever signing as an indie author. And we basically never stopped talking. And that was 2 years ago now that we first met. And because of the whole never stopping talking and becoming such close friends, it naturally turned into me working for her as her personal assistant, or PA, as people call it in the space. And I have been now working for her for just over a year. It was last December that it was made official. So now I'm kind of in the space, over a year later where I'm feeling like I'm ready for more. I'm feeling like I want to take on more and help more authors just take the load off. They have so much going on all the time that they have to keep track of. And I mean, I love being people's, biggest hype girl. And I'm proud of myself in the fact that, I can be those authors' hype girls too, and also form little hype girl groups for them to push them forward and get their books out there and into the world.
Well, that's a really interesting thing that I've been observing on the outside, right? Like you and I interact every now and then on social media, but you don't really know people. But I've definitely witnessed the way you move in community and create community. And I think it's so beautiful. And it was something that came up on our call because that doesn't just happen by accident. There's a lot of things you pour into that, especially when it's remote, right? Like I used to run a cancer support center, and I was a therapist at a community clinic. So I had those experiences of those in person. You're seeing people every single day, and you can slowly build that community. But I'm watching you do it from afar, do it so beautifully. And I wanted to ask you, one, where do you think you learned about building community, and what is most important to you to make sure that you're bringing to the table? Not taking, but bringing.
Hmm. It's kind of funny because growing up, I always kind of felt like the black sheep. Like, I never really belonged truly in a group, or I always kind of stuck to my own or had like one best friend, like one core person that I trusted and like put myself into. And I feel like, the sense of community is something that I have craved ever since graduating from nursing school and kind of being out in the real world and being like, okay, now I'm not, forced to be around these people all the time. I have to make my own connections. And like I said, I've changed jobs a few times in my day over the last decade here. Kind of searching though for that sense of connection and fulfillment too, that I was finding certain jobs I wasn't getting that. And it was just something that I was like, this is something I really value. So I mean, it started small with helping host that book club back during COVID days where everyone was isolated and at home and like couldn't get out and do things and meet people. But I think since I've transitioned into the bookish space in terms of being a PA, but also on Bookstagram quite actively. I just really value people that are authentic and true to themselves and put themselves out there. Like it's brave to, show up on social media and just like do the thing, like post these videos and post any kind of content really. And the idea of community came to me when honestly Bailey offered me my first kind of job with being her PA of taking over her content team. And what content teams are basically hype teams for authors that they get, perks and exclusive things given to them, but they also give in terms of posting content for authors and really boosting their releases, things like that. And so when I was given that role, I said, okay, like I am, taking on this leadership role and I really want to create an intimate community of people that not only, feel safe and feel loved in their space that they're in, but they feel motivated by it. They want to show up and obviously they're in the team for a reason because they love Bailey, but I really just wanted to create that space where we can feed off of each other and love on each other and just be each other's hype girls at the end of the day. So,
Oh, I really see that in all that you're doing. It's so funny when you mentioned to me that you were sort of opening yourself up to other opportunities. I was like, how? You guys do so much. It looks from the outside like you're so busy working 24 hours a day. So this is incredible. And I love that we're talking about it because I feel like community is almost one of those buzzwords. Like we want it, but we also don't 100% know how to show up in it all the time, and what it asks of us and how we can be of service. And I'm thinking, even in my own life, I think my favorite part of being in community is that moment when it transforms something in me, like something that used to hurt me or be a struggle for me. I can show up in community and help someone else with it, and it goes through that transformation. All of a sudden I'm sort of like released of something, and it feels really good. And then I'm watching the community that you're creating and Bailey's creating with her writing, and you're touching on so many beautiful topics that people are having these transformative experiences as they're reading along and participating, and even that opportunity to be in that sort of like creator community and help promote and support the books. I feel like there's that phrase, that Ram Dass phrase, everything is grist for the mill. And I feel like that's happening here. Like you get that opportunity to have showing up in community in a really beautiful way modeled for you. And
mhm.
I just love it. And I love what you're doing. And I'm really excited to watch you take up more space in this book world because I actually feel like we need more Kaylee. So I'm starting with a podcast, starting with you being here and joining me. So um, yeah,
Thank you.
I'm. Oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about stepping into that space because I feel like that's a really relatable topic for so many of us. And not just on social media and not just when it comes to books, but even in our own lives. When we sort of be where our feet are and claim our space, take up space, I don't know, what are some things that come to the surface for you? Whether it's about being perceived, putting yourself out there, imposter syndrome.
Yeah, wow. Those are all things that I deal with, and that I am actively working on. I feel like for so long, even though, I mean, you've seen me the past, I would say half a year, really honing in on my content and sharing more and showing my face more. I have been working through the fear of being seen for a very long time now. The way that I talk, like the fact that I'm on a podcast right now, like former me would be like, I don't even want to hear your voice. Who else would want to? So the fear of being seen, the fear of being heard, but also, yeah, we are really our worst critics. I feel like the social media space in terms of Bookstagram specifically, or book talk, I guess, can be really good, but it can also be very negative. And it's really choosing what you want out of it and who you're surrounding yourself with in that space. Because really, you're in charge of who you're following and whose content you're consuming. The block button's there for a reason. And I feel like surrounding yourself with that almost like support group or team of hype girls that maybe you had a post that was posted and you're like, well, that really didn't go the way I wanted it to. But then you see a comment from a friend of yours being like, keep shining. I love what you're creating. That really goes a long way. And that really keeps someone that is feeling insecure and having that imposter syndrome, that keeps them going. Because honestly, you know, we need to do the work as well, but it helps to have that support to lean on when you're really in your head and you just want to throw in the towel some days because maybe your posts aren't getting the best engagement, or maybe, even for me running a content team, maybe the release didn't go great in terms of people creating content and then you feel like you're the failure even though it's out of your control. Yeah, I feel like it's important to learn how to get out of your own way, and it only comes with doing it more. And that is something that I've had to keep in mind because I will have moments where I will just disappear for, I mean, not completely because it's part of my job, but in terms of me posting, video content of my face, I will disappear at moments because I'm like having that imposter syndrome, or nobody wants to see me and nobody wants to hear what I have to say. And you go through it, you feel it, you move through it, you keep going. That's kind of what I've learned the past 6 months. And that's kind of why I'm feeling now, starting out 2026, just kind of like, what is there to lose? What do I have to lose? I can post my content, put it out there. And if people don't like it, they don't like it. But the right people that are attracted to you and what you put out there are going to come into your life and it's going to pay off no matter what you want out of making said content.
I love what you're sharing. And it reminds me of a conversation I had recently with another author, Allie Roberts. And I was asking her about these same topics and what she was going through before she hit publish on her first book. And she said, I'd had a conversation with a friend earlier in the year, and she said, I'm more curious than I am scared. And that was sort of her mantra that really got her through. And then I was also thinking of this sort of very intimate, secret conversations I have with my sister, right? Like sister conversations are always pretty intense and raw, and she'll probably kill me for sharing this. But when we talk about imposter syndrome, and it's that feeling that someone's going to figure out you are not as good as they think you are because you've tricked everyone. Like, this is the level we're at. And I'm not saying you are. I'm saying even in my professional life, I have moments where I'm like, oh, I'm just fooling everyone. I'm just like very manipulative. Like, they have no idea that I'm not good. One day they're all going to figure out that I'm not as good at this. And so I feel like when we talk about these things, we're actually not really like breathing life into them. We're almost deflating them a little bit by just saying, hey, this is pretty normal. We feel this whether you're creating, whether you're writing, whether you're doing something professionally, whether it's with your family or in a relationship. People feel the same way in relationships, like the fear of being seen. And I think it's a really important conversation, and not pathologizing it, right? Not making it like there's something wrong with you. But it's like, well, you're a human being living in 2026, and we've never been this exposed before or accessible or had so much feedback from people before. Do you know, you just mentioned the block button. I'll tell you the one thing I do on TikTok. I've never blocked anyone, but I have filters on the words because everyone kept writing comments about what they hate. So I always make videos about books I like, and people would come
Yeah.
to the comments and be like, "Well, I hated that book." I was like, in what universe would someone be making a beautiful video about a book that they like, talking about it, how much they loved it, and you have to come over and tell them how much you hate it? So anyway,
Mhm.
that's my little self-protection thing because I actually want to enjoy these spaces and not be
Yes.
miserable every time I open my phone. So,
Like, reading is fun. It's supposed to be fun. And,
it's
like, I
supposed to be
understand
fun.
how people obviously have like, reading is subjective. Everyone has
Oh,
their own
yeah.
opinion. But, yeah, I also have never like, and I've seen creators in this space say, "You know what? I share about books that I love because that is what I wanna put out there. I want to show people and give people recommendations of things that I enjoyed. Why would I
Yeah.
share things that I hate? Like, what is the point of that? Because maybe someone else wouldn't hate it." Also, these authors putting their heart into their work,
I
like, that
know.
is, like to me, I see it as an insult to a person. It's not even the book itself. It just that really makes me empathize with authors that have to deal with harsh reviews and being tagged in reviews on social media that, like, I've seen it time and time again, Bailey being bamboozled by, what she thought was, like, a cute edit about my book, and then it turned into, like, a rage review, and they tagged her in it. I'm like, "For what? Why do you want the author to see this?"
I
It's
know.
just crazy. There's no common sense sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that social media, it can be such a powerful tool, but when you think about it, the phone makes you feel really big. It
Mhm,
really does. It's this tiny thing and it makes every thought, opinion, feeling feel huge. And sometimes when I'm posting, I live in a lovely place and we're always outside. And sometimes I'll be down by the river and post a video and just be like, don't trust indoor thoughts because I feel like my indoor thoughts can be very like limited or not the way I would feel if I was outside enjoying myself, realizing that I'm part of something much bigger, right? And that's
mhm.
where I say social media and the phone kind of, you know, inflates ego and opinion. I said on a podcast a few months ago that on my mental health podcast I've had for like a million years, there's this one man who listened to every single episode. And he emailed me to tell me that he listened to every single episode and that I talked too much. It was like, for my solo podcast where I'm just talking, I talk too much? And he was like, "Yes, absolutely, you should talk less." So I'm bringing that up because it's like, you can have a fear of being perceived, and you can also laugh about it and just be like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I
okay. Why did you listen to every
why
single
did you seek me out and listen to every single episode?" And like, I bring it up, it's kind of an embarrassing story for me, but I bring it up because it's kind of funny too. It's like, anytime I
Yeah,
take myself too seriously, I mean, there's gonna be someone out there who loves it and someone who hates it, someone who can't wait to make fun of it. So,
and
it is what it is.
that's the risk you take with
Yeah.
yeah, being bold and doing things that are uncomfortable and putting your work out there, either if
Yeah.
you're an author writing or you're a creator making content. People are going to hate it. People are gonna block you, unfollow you, say she's not for me, she annoys me, whatever they may say. But then there's the people that love on you so hard
Mhm.
and they remind you of your why and why you're doing this and why this is fulfilling to you and you continue to go despite all of the roadblocks or bumps on the road to the way to it's really just the journey. There's no destination,
Yeah.
but to where you wanna go and what you wanna do with it and what you wanna create. There's always gonna be haters, but at the end of the day, I really just try and focus in on the people that love on me, and I have told Bailey to do this, but I've done it too, where I've taken screenshots of certain DMs or posts that I've been tagged in, right?
I do
Because
it
it
all the
just
time. I'll confess, it's fine. I do it all the time.
yeah, I have a whole folder in my phone because on those days where, say, yeah, someone made a hateful comment or I just felt defeated or, like I said, a post didn't do well or something, I can look back at that and just remind myself to keep going.
And it's okay to find your people. I feel like there's that misconception out there too. Like I don't think any one of us is meant to be consumed by everyone. And
No.
it's really okay. It's like get off the bus, it leaves room for someone else to get on the bus. And that's amazing because I want those people who want to be here, and I think it's really freeing when we can allow ourselves to feel that way. I don't always feel that way, I have to be honest with you.
Exactly, and I feel like I mean, we were talking about imposter syndrome, but I think one of the biggest things that I'm still working on too is ditching my people-pleasing mentality.
Oh. Oh my god,
Because
Kaylee, should we talk about this?
yeah, let's do it. Why
Let's
not?
let's have a people pleasing discussion. Well, I appreciate that you're acknowledging it, right? Like it's always a little struggle when we see something in ourselves that's maybe not helping us thrive. Like it might have helped us survive in different situations, but we get to a point where it's not going to really work for us in the future. So, are you okay to share a little bit about what that looks like for you?
Mm, yeah, I have definitely had a lot of lessons learned over the past year, especially just about how much I have proceeded to empty my cup and give to others and not take care of myself. I had a really hard time having to say no to certain people, setting boundaries and not only setting them, but sticking to them. I always felt like the bad guy when I would do that. And it took a lot of learning and a lot of, yeah, just sitting with myself to be like, well, this is no longer serving you. Your cup is empty. You have nothing
Mhm.
left to give. So how are you supposed to show up and do your work if you have nothing in you? So yeah, I feel like people pleasing definitely is something that has been in a part of my life for basically most of my life because as an eldest daughter too, I always wanted to do my best and get the approval from other people. Never do wrong, always do the right thing. Don't worry about me. I've got it covered. Don't have anyone worry about me, things like that. And so I kind of just came to a head and was just like, wow, I need to take care of me because that is ultimately what is going to push me in my work and give me the strength and motivation to do so and not feel so burnt out,
Mhm.
so that I'm able to show up. And I know you know this because you commented on it, but I was Googling, I was just so in a very low state near the end of the year there. And I was Googling what empathy burnout was. I was like, what is this? It just came to my head. I don't actually know where I saw it, but I Googled and I was like, check, 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 check. This is me. Okay. Now that I have realized this, how do I like work on it and not
Mhm.
fix it, not throw a band-aid on it? It's going to take a lot of work and you can't just get rid of your old ways like that. It takes time, it takes healing.
Well,
Yeah.
I love that you're bringing it up because much like some of the other things we talked about, there's so many misconceptions about it as well. I love what you just said of like, it doesn't go away right away all at once. And that's sort of like a tenet of psychotherapy. I used to be a psychotherapist, and you would never want to strip someone of something that they have been using, a tool that they've been using their whole life immediately and leave them with nothing. And it's almost like this cycle. Like eventually it begins to cycle out and you add different things, you add different tools, and you build confidence.
Yeah.
And I had an experience this year that, which is why I responded to your empathy burnout post, which was, it was a really strange, I'm going to use the word opportunity in quotes, but I was really, really sick for the first time in my life. I mean, I've never even gotten like a cold, and I was in bed and working full time and trying to recover and do all these things and like grieving and sad and just so many different things. But I could no longer show up in my life the way I had previously. And I did not realize how much energy I'd been putting out, encouraging, supporting, listening, reflecting, following up, responding, da da da, da, all of these things until I couldn't. Like my brain just wouldn't let me. I couldn't do it. And at first, it was really confronting, right? There's always that moment when you're trying to change something about yourself or you're redirected and you're just like, oh, this is painful. I had no
Mhm.
idea. But it does teach you a lot about yourself and how you show up in relationships and how you communicate. And it does give you, again, a quote unquote opportunity to sort of like redefine your relationships with people and get to know them in a new way, get to know yourself in a new way. You mentioned boundaries. And I even feel like in sort of pop psychology, boundaries are almost seen as a punch in the face. But I read this poet once and she said it so beautifully. Of course, I'm going to massacre it. But she said, um, boundaries are not walls, they're beaches. Not everyone should swim in your ocean, something along the lines. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, when I think of it that way, I think of it as this like beautiful, loving, safe thing for both of us, a way for this relationship to continue in a way that doesn't build resentment. People aren't angry. They're not hurt. They don't feel taken advantage of. And I mean, it's a very poetic way to look at it. It's not always easy in real life setting those boundaries, especially when that has not been what's been happening in the relationship. So I feel like this is a discussion that a lot of people can relate to and may not even talk about out loud, right? Because they feel like they almost can't. But
Mhm.
taking a step back from that is powerful, it's grounding, and I'm wondering, is there something that you learned about yourself in this process?
I learned a lot of things.
You can tell me all of them, but I just I don't wanna
Yeah,
be too nosy.
I know. Yeah, no, I'm very open with people that I trust and like trusting that the people that are listening in, it's finding them for a reason kind of thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can relate. But yeah, I just feel like for so long I've lived my life and what I value is serving others. That fulfills me. But there's a difference between serving others and giving yourself over to others where you lose yourself in the process. And that doesn't serve anyone, right? That's not going to allow you to be able to show up for these people if you have nothing in you. But also what I have found in terms of the people pleasing mentality is that the people in your life that love you and want what's best for you, they don't want you to do the people pleasing in terms like on their behalf. Uh, Like I've been called out a time or two just being like, "Girl, take care of yourself. Like you don't need to do this for me right away." And I feel like that's something too that comes with when you're self-employed and you're doing this type of work for others. You just feel like sometimes I'm going to drop everything because I want to please them and make sure they know that I'm doing a good job and then I'm going to show up for them. But that's not something that if they knew that was going on behind the scenes, like
Yeah.
Bailey would be appalled. Julia would be like, "What are you doing? No, you do not have to do this right away. You need to go to sleep. You need to move your body." Like Julia has been my little reminder lately of just like getting my health back on track and like taking care of me. But yeah, it's so funny how you just kind of easily go back to those behaviors when you're working through it, but it
Right.
just takes time and practice like anything else. Any skill that you are trying to develop, you just have to work on it and you have to keep practicing it and you have to keep having those moments of like, "Oh, I caught myself. I'm people pleasing again." And just have that awareness, I think is very important.
Oh, I love that you're sharing this. And to build on what you said, I really do hope it finds the right person because I know there's someone out there who's listening and is maybe even a little confronted by what we're saying, right? Feels even like a little called out. And to them, I would say, we're calling you in and we're reminding you that it's that almost like cliche phrase, like when you're on an airplane and the pressure drops, the mask drops down and they say, put your mask on first. because you can't help anyone else unless you have your air mask on. You can't transmit something you haven't got. And it's really important because the eldest daughter mentality is no, 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 I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
Yes.
When I say the words, I'm fine, oh my God, I should be arrested. Like something is happening when I'm like, no, 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 I'm fine. I'm fine. It's totally okay. That's when you know
Yeah.
that something's going on. So I really appreciate that we're talking about this. And like I'm kind of laughing about it. I know it can be like serious for some people, but I think a lot of it comes down to having grace for yourself because you made a really beautiful point of I'm going to catch myself as I'm growing, as I'm learning, as I'm developing these new skills, it's going to come up. I'm going to do it again. It's about that progress, not perfection. And that can be really hard for some of us, especially if we're really tough on ourselves. And right, you're talking about being a business owner and doing this on your own and wanting to do everything right away, really well. The first,
Right? Has to be perfect.
it's got to be perfect. Yeah, just opportunities to be really nice to yourself, even in discomfort. So, yeah.
Yes. And treat yourself like your best friend. That is something that
Mhm.
I have been really catching myself with too. Like even when I have that negative self-talk or I'm journaling and lately I've been, which I usually don't do, but sometimes reading back to what I was writing when it was just like a morning brain dump, that kind of thing. And I'm like, man, why? You got to stop. Why are you being so mean to yourself? This is not how you would talk to your best friend. You wouldn't dare. So why do you allow that to be your narrative? Why do you allow yourself to treat yourself that way and talk to yourself that way? It's not okay. Stop it.
I know, and we should have these talks because we do need the reminders. I feel very fortunate. I work with some wonderful women in my day job, and they have been my reminder sometimes of like, hey, you had a really hard year. It was really hard on your body, like extremely tough. I think it's okay if and they'll like present me an option of like maybe something being softer, gentler, taking more time. And I'm like, oh, that never occurred to me. Thank you. So
Mhm.
I think that that's really beautiful when it happens and so painful, so painful to actually start doing. But Haley, I love that we've been able to talk about so many of these topics. I feel like they're incredibly relatable to the people listening. I know it's stuff that I'm going through. I'm not special in any way. If I'm going through it, other people are as well. And I feel like that leads us to a discussion of how we found each other, right? I love Bailey Hannah's books. And I've said this to her, which I'm sure is very awkward for her in person on the podcast to her face. But I just feel like she has something special going on in these books where she is talking about very real life things and doing them in a way that people feel safe, they feel seen, they feel like they can relate to it, they feel hope, optimism, like their story isn't over when they thought it was. And finding sort of that like magic and love and just sort of the miracles that can happen in our daily lives, almost when the whole world has told us that the story is over. I truly appreciate that she's writing books of people in their 30s, people who've been together a long time, people who are going through things, losing parents, dealing with health issues, just all sorts of things. So let's sort of dive in and fangirl a little bit. Where would you like to start?
She's gonna love this but hate this because she is so funny. She kills me. And I'm like, this is something you're working on, Bailey, is accepting praise. And when people are just like fangirling over her,
Oh my
she's
God, she
still,
probably hates talking to me. Like, every time we
no,
talk, I'm like, oh my God. And then you wrote this, and then you did this, and I loved it. So
no,
I'll keep that in mind for our next interview.
it's good for her. It's good
Okay,
for her.
good,
She needs
good,
to, yeah, embrace it. This is
good.
part of the job, is what I tell her. Um, Sorry, what was your question again? I just totally
Where
blanked.
should we start? I mean, where should we start when we're talking about these books? What's the first one that's coming up for you?
Oh gosh. I mean, this will probably be to no one's surprise if you're tuning in. Change of Heart literally changed my life, not to be dramatic, but it definitely did. And that was the book that brought me and Bailey together. It was the first book I beta read for her, so that was a process of before she gave out early copies to, they call them ARC readers. I was in the depths with her, going through her manuscript and having kind of the the first wave of just like reading things over raw and experiencing that and all the emotions that came with it. So that is a book that the timing of it, but also what is included in terms of the representation in that book will always stick with me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about it because you and I had mentioned we both loved the book. And for anyone who's tuning in, why did that book and the topics in it mean so much? And also how they were presented, because it's very specific. What was it about that resonated with you, especially when you're beta reading? I mean, you're doing, I want to touch on that too, because that's a separate topic, but what about this stood out for you?
Oh my goodness, so many things. I feel like, as you know, Bailey's books always tend to have a really good mental health representation in them, for either, one of the main characters or both. And she just has the ability to create such depth with her words and make you feel like when you're reading, you are either putting yourself in that person's shoes and feeling their emotions, or it's like a friend that you're listening to while they confide in you type of thing. She has the ability to just really, make you connect and feel empathy for the characters that she creates. And what I found in Change of Heart is obviously there were a few different things going on. Each character, like Denver and Blair, both had stuff that they had to really work through that was not easy. And this book was a second chance romance. So Bailey decided that it needed to be a dual timeline, as in, we're going to get glimpses of their past,
Yeah.
of when they, grew up together, got together, and then we're going to get glimpses of the future now and how everything changed. And, Denver was dealing with a lot as a young teenager with his mom getting sick, cancer, and passing away quite quickly. And Blair was with him through that. But they also faced their own, challenges together as a couple that I will not spoil for anyone. But she, post everything happening and her leaving him in the end, because it's a second chance, that they broke up. But after that all happened, she had her own battles to face in terms of her mental health, dealing with depression. And it kind of came full circle when we got back to the present moment in that timeline of her actively working on her mental health. And, she was very open about the fact that she's been taking Lexapro. She's been on her antidepressants for quite a while and didn't make it something that she was ashamed of. And that's what I really appreciated, because I, for years, have dealt with that sense of shame around my own anxiety and depression and what I've dealt with. And so just the way that that came about and how she just like told Denver as if it was just like I take these pills. This is what helps me. And he's like, that's great. And I mean, one of the things that I'll always swoon over and I just will never recover from is the fact that he would set alarms on his phone reminding her to take her meds. Because Blair, I mean, she's taken care of herself for how many years now without him and from being on her own out in the big city, that kind of thing. But knowing her and who she is as a person, he knows that her being the eldest daughter, the reason for her coming home was to take care of her sick mom in the present day. And he knew that he had to be that person, and he wanted to be that person for her to make sure that she took care of herself. And I really, really connected to that. And I was like, man, that's all that one could really want in a partner, and someone that there's no judgment. They accept you for who you are and they will help you. And he showed her how to be more okay with asking for help. And that was the biggest, I would say, like character arc that she had, was learning how to ask for it and not just handling things on her own. And obviously, Denver had a lot. I could talk all day about Denver Wells. I call him my husband. Um, he's taken, lady, sorry. But he is someone that went through, like I said, a lot with losing his mom, and I really connected to not only Blair's character, but Denny's character. So much in the fact that grief is just something that you will never know how to navigate. It's different for everybody and how they handle it. You saw that portrayed in how Denny handled it versus his other siblings. You saw it in the way of how his dad handled it by just taking off. Saw it in the way of how Blair handled it and how she still obviously is grieving his mother, who was a second mom to her. So I really connected and yeah, basically sobbed through that entire book because it hit me on so many emotional levels, and I don't think I've ever related to a book more, with personal experiences of grief, but also being that eldest daughter who just wants to show up for everyone and doesn't wanna look weak, doesn't want to look like she, doesn't have it figured out, and really just, at the end of the day, wants someone to lean on and knows that it's okay to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way you talk about this. And as I'm thinking about the eldest daughter of it all, I think about sort of the pervasive, anxious thought I had as a kid. And it was that if I don't know what's going on, something must be wrong. Meaning, like, I had to be in charge, taking care of it, understanding all the plans, have the money, have the way out, everything A to Z. And it was that sort of distorted perception that if I'm not on top of it, then something's definitely going to go wrong. Something's happening. And it's interesting as you grow up and you kind of get to step back from that a little bit. And as you're saying, like, not be perceived as weak, even internally, because I don't actually think anyone else is perceiving us as weak when we simply ask for help. I don't think that's happening. I think that's just our minds being very
Us.
creative. It's us, it's our minds being us. So I loved that all of this came up in the book as well. And we really got to see that through how Blair was just trying to be on top of it, to be everything to everyone, where she almost becomes nothing to herself. And then you have this person who walks in and is sort of doing that thing in therapy. We say, like, halt. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Like, Denny was great at that. He was just like, here's a snack. Here's this. I think you need to pay attention to this. And it's like when
Here's a
someone
lamp.
reminds you, the lamp. I, as a lifelong migraine girl, I was like, this man, Bailey
Same.
knows men because
You
like this was amazing that he brought her that lamp just to make her life an inch easier. You know what I mean? I feel like that's also sort of like the eldest daughter journey of thinking like, "Oh no, I deserve my life to be a little bit easier." Like I
Mhm.
don't need it to be as difficult as possible, and sort of that bravado or that little like high we get when we've accomplished something really hard. It's like, well, maybe my new accomplishment could just be enjoying things and feeling like I have what I need and feeling like I've got reserves of energy. Maybe I need to find enjoyment there. So, I mean, I was thinking
Yes.
about that. Well, one other thing though, I love that you're talking about, and I really appreciate that you're sharing sort of the personal journey you were going through that was, you know, not, I wouldn't say mirrored, but like there were similar things in this story. Bailey highlighted anticipatory grief, which is
Mhm.
something we never talk about. And I thought it was really beautiful because it's confusing when you're going through it, especially as a caregiver. And I've been a caregiver for several people in my life at the end of their lives. And it's almost like this quiet process that happens, but it's like raging inside of you of the grief before you're allowed to grieve. Grieving the person while they're still alive and you're still caring for them, but you feel like they're slipping away, and just to put that on a page to make people feel affirmed in their own experience of that, I just thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, it was pretty surreal to read that, and I told her and I cried to her and I opened up. Like at that point we were already friends. I trusted her with
Mhm.
my own stuff, but it was like she rewrote how I lost my dad. It was
Mm.
It was crazy. But it was also so healing because it made me feel so much less alone in it. And I know that everyone grieves in some capacity, like, that is part of life, but it was that anticipatory grief as well that came in where he got a diagnosis. They said he only had a few months, and it's kinda like you're taking things day by day, trying to stay hopeful, but also I remember being so in my head because I used to be a nurse, so I kinda knew how things were going, which also Blair was a nurse practitioner,
Yeah.
so it's just, like, the crossovers are crazy. But it was wild to have those emotions of being like, I actually know that things are not going good technically, but I'm choosing just to try and keep the hope alive and just to like cherish those last little moments I have with him. It was very healing to read and something that I needed at the time just to feel like I was less alone, but also to remind myself of the memories that I had with him and the good memories, and that's what Bailey did a good job at too, was really digging into that past timeline
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
building that character of Lucy Wells up, and you just fell in love with Lucy. You loved Mama Lucy, and that's what made it 10 times more devastating, when it happened. So, it wasn't just, her throwing in grief as a plot point to make her books have more depth because I have seen that happen in the space before. She really she went with it and she made it a visceral feeling that every reader, no matter if they went through it or not, felt it. Like we had support groups. I made a change of heart crying montage video. It was a whole thing, but it was cathartic. It was healing, like I said, to come together with fellow readers and for me and her to come together and for me to open up my heart to her and tell her the story and how I'm like, "You literally wrote what happened." But I think that's such a beautiful thing, and it made me more connected to him in the end.
One of the things that I was thinking about is what we learn about ourselves and what rises to the surface in those moments when we're doing the impossible thing, whether it's caring for someone we love at the end of life or navigating any other challenging situation. Because you're seeing yourself do and say things you never imagined that you would be doing. You're reflecting on things almost with a new pair of glasses. You're looking back at your life and your relationship with this person. And then at the same time, specifically in that book, you're reestablishing a relationship with someone you have just intense intimacy with. You've been through some things, you've grown together, and you're coming back. I wouldn't say reconciliation like a fight, but like reconciliation is coming back into connection with each other. I don't
Yeah.
think it always has to have a negative connotation. I think it's sort of reconciling that's who we were, those were the choices we made, some of the mistakes we made, and we've learned from it. We're coming back together. I think it's really just such interesting modeling. And if you're going to put yourself in a story, what a powerful story to put yourself in to see, oh, what would come up for me? Just even the topic of being exhausted. Let's talk about this. I don't know why this is standing out to me.
Yeah.
No one really talks about that. When you're a caregiver, it's almost like you're not you are allowed, and this goes back to our people pleasing. You are allowed to be exhausted, but it's not something we even want to accept in ourselves when we're trying to give this person all the love and care and attention that we can. And it's one of those things where that was beautifully written into the book where someone's just like just drained, like they're just tapped out. And I just feel like that's beautiful. Like you almost give the reader permission to acknowledge that in themselves. Like it's not the end of the world. This is
Right.
probably a really human thing that's going on, you know?
Mhm.
So it's almost like a little lesson in self acceptance.
Oh, yeah, and I love too something about Bailey and the way that she portrays her characters is that they are all a little flawed. They're not perfect. The way that they handle situations, they make mistakes, they're human, and I think that is why, as readers, we connect to her books so much because we see ourselves in these characters for the good things, but also the bad things. But also, they're not bad. They are, like, flipping that script. It's more of a a lesson. It's life. Like we are human. We make mistakes. Things happen. We don't only always handle things in the best way, but it just makes us connect more. And she, I mean, as a human herself, is definitely not a surface level type of person. Like she's a deep person, and that's why I've connected so much with her. It's just like we will never just have surface level conversations. Like it's always going to be diving in. But yeah, she really just puts that on the page,
Yeah.
and I think it's honestly why people gravitate to her work.
Well, when she was on, we had this interesting discussion about the book Seeing Red because I loved the dynamic between them. And she brought up that, oh, some people have a lot of feedback about my main female character. And I was like, I don't know. If I
Oh,
was
yeah.
randomly pregnant by someone that I did not know would be the best dad, and I only had a few months to come to terms with it, I actually think she got to a great place at lightning speed. And then I thought it was just so beautiful how they established their relationship, and neither of them were perfect. And I love real books, like human books, where people can have a journey, a character arc. They can go through something, they can learn something. I just feel like that's what I gravitate towards. And no, I love that I found her and I've been able to talk to her, and you and I can connect about these topics so much. I truly do. And I'm so excited about the next book. I mean, if we're just gonna, give a talk for the girlies, like let's talk about that for a second. I know barely nothing about it. I know what Bailey told me when we did the last interview, and I was like, "I think this is gonna be my favorite book."
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
mean,
I
Kaylee.
honestly I think it's her best work yet.
Okay.
It's if you thought Change of Heart was soul crushing and emotional, buckle up. I mean, it's not like she is not fair warning people. She's very vocal in the fact that this is gonna hurt you. But yeah, I think it's gonna be another one of those releases where we have a support group and we come together, and it's gonna be therapeutic, but it's gonna be beautiful, and I feel like it was the perfect way to wrap up the Wells Ranch series.
Yeah.
I don't think she could have done it any better, honestly.
All right. Well, you and I are very excited. And to anyone listening, that book is Love Wells Kept, and that will be Jackson and Kate's story. And I am so excited. Kaylee, do you know when that is coming out?
Of course I do. It is, July 7th, 2026, and you can now pre-order it everywhere. Pre-orders help authors get their books out there, everyone, so make sure to do that.
Done. I can't wait. And I'm really excited about 6 months of content about the book. So I just want you to know
Well,
that as someone who sees everything you post, I can't wait for all of that.
it's so funny because she just started posting more teasers about it, and she's like, "Is this too soon? Is the timing?" I said, "Nah, might as well just go with it."
Yeah, no, not too soon at all. Just be like, no, Casey's really excited about it. She told me on the podcast. So, Kaylee, we've been talking about what we like in books. And the one thing I mentioned was imperfect characters. I like a good, flawed character, I like a character journey. Are there any authors that you would recommend to anyone listening who also likes that?
Oh goodness, where do I begin? I feel like who I'm going to highlight is my friend Tara DeWitt, who also happens to be one of Bailey's good friends. But she is someone that I've been reading her books for years now. And that is the one author that I was like, wow, I have not related more. I feel so seen. I aspire to be everything that this character is. I would say to start by reading Savor It, and that is the first book in a new series that she's still working on. And basically, what I'll say is all I hope to be is Sagebird. That's all.
Well, I purchased that book because I felt like you and I had talked and you mentioned it. I was like, well, I don't know if Kaylee's recommending it. I know I'm going to love it. So she'll be next on my list and I can't wait. So thank you so much for that. Well, Kaylee, I have so enjoyed this conversation with you. And now I'd love to just hand you the floor because I always invite my guests to write and read a love letter, either to their readers or to their younger selves. And I would love to hear your love letter.
Okay. I have my journal here. I decided to kind of do a twist on this because I know that you asked about referring to our past selves. And I thought, what if I wrote a love letter to my future self for everything that I aspire to and hope to accomplish this year? I thought it could be a good way to motivate, but also manifest these ideas that I have in my head. Um, so here we go. Dearest me, wow, what a year it's been. You should be so proud of many things, but most of all, I hope you're proud of committing to yourself and your dreams. You finally faced your fear of being seen and let your light shine bright. You stopped playing small and settling for less than you deserve. You took a gamble and bet on yourself. You became your own hype girl. And because of that, you were presented with more opportunities than you could have ever imagined. This year, you took better care of yourself. You filled your cup back up. You established new routines that became daily rituals. You put your head down and got to work, assisting more authors than you could have ever dreamed of. You were the busiest that you've ever been, but you were doing work that you truly love. You traveled to new places with your best friend, and you even took your own solo trip too. You got a new tattoo, you dyed your hair because why not? You read books for work and for play and had fun doing both. More cowboy romance, of course. You fostered new friendships and nurtured your close relationships. You got more comfortable with saying no. You sought out validation from yourself more than others. You celebrated your wins, no matter how big or small. You faced rejection and chose to see it as redirection. You trusted those gut feelings whenever you needed to. They never steered you wrong. You became more present in your life by channeling your inner sage bird. You learned to be better at asking for help, like Blair Hart. You took Mama Lucy's words of advice and chose to give them hell, baby. You did the dang thing. You believed in yourself. You fully embraced your name for yourself and remained more hopeful than ever. It's been an absolute joy seeing you thrive this year. I can't wait to see you shine even brighter this next year, my sweet friend. With all my love, me.
Kaylee, I'm going to steal your love letter.
I love letters. If you guys don't know this about me, that is one of my, I would like to say, favorite traits about myself lately. That I have been writing love letters and sending snail mail to all of the content team members. And for their birthday, or just to say thank you, or even just to friends of mine over Christmas, just thank you for being my friend. And it's so funny because I was like, okay, I can't make this too long, but also I'm the person that'll take up both sides of the card and I will
Yeah.
have no room at the bottom to say, oh, also this is from Kaylee.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love that you shared that with us. I think the spin on it was beautiful. And I just love how hopeful and optimistic and forward thinking it was. And I feel like that's the lesson for everyone listening, right? We all have our own little lists that when we reflect in December and we look back on this year, we kind of are hoping we feel good about ourselves. So this was just a really nice, gentle reminder. And not that harsh New Year's resolution, but just more of like an affirmation of like, oh no, we're doing it this year. This is great.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it was wonderful. Well, Kaylee, I know how I get in touch with you, but for anyone listening who has been loving our conversation and wants to find you and follow you, where do you live on the internet? I'm asking, but I also put links in the show notes to all of your social media. So where do you live?
Amazing. I would say for the most part, I live on Instagram. You can find me. My handle is Your Hopeful Romantic, which is basically what I aspire to be. Is hopeful, and I love my romance books, so I thought it was a good name for myself. I am also on Book Talk or TikTok, so you can find me there with the same handle. Coming up soon, I'm going to be posting my official author services on my page for authors to get in touch with me and know that I am ready to work for them and with them. And I'm looking forward to making more connections this year.
I'm so excited to hear that because I'll probably be the first person knocking on your door. So you made my day by sharing this. And I just had the best time with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'll come back soon and we can talk more about books and every other topic that we touch on today because we barely talked about books. We were talking about like mental health and everything else. But Kaylee, thank
Yeah,
you so much.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Love Letters and Books, a podcast for anyone who loves a good story. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review this podcast on your favorite listening platform. You can find me on both Instagram and TikTok at Love Letters and Books. And if you're interested in being a guest on Love Letters and Books, suggesting your favorite author, or just want to write in an original love letter to yourself or someone else to be read on air, please send me an email at lovelettersandbookspodcast@gmail.com.